Hi, I'm Dwayne Brown. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, running dry in California. Mandatory water cuts are the new reality. The water-saving measures by San Diego and other cities to the state's drought emergency.
More HOV lanes or perhaps a double-decker lane. Those are a few options in a plan moving forward to expand the 94 freeway. I'm Peggy Pico with the next steps and why opponents argue against the expansion. But first, why a new report suggests infill housing developments could be an efficient use of water during the drought.
Hitting all the high notes, the marathon milestone for a runner who said he could barely walk a lifetime ago. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Hi, good evening. Thanks for joining us. The future of medical marijuana in California is up for a vote in the Assembly as soon as Wednesday. Some state lawmakers are looking to legalize marijuana for recreational use, but say it must be more closely regulated with new laws. A new measure offers an outline for state regulations. Different state departments would apply their own regulations to growing, prescribing, and taxing cannabis. Tomorrow, San Diego City Council will hear environmental appeals against some proposed medical marijuana cooperatives. KPBS Metro reporter Taryn Mento says so far only one cooperative has opened its doors in the city.
Pot dispensaries face opposition whenever they open. But this time, at least one of the appeals was filed by an applicant who is also seeking a permit to open a medical marijuana cooperative. In other words, a competitor. Permits are limited and they're awarded on a first-come, first-served basis. This creates an intense competition, and some applicants are trying to knock each other out of the running. Last week, the San Diego Planning Commission okayed the city's fifth cooperative permit. But at the meeting, commissioners proposed requesting the city council to reform the ordinance. Right now, only one permitted cooperative is operating in city limits. Taryn Mento, KPBS News.
A couple of San Diego businesses are facing new penalties for selling synthetic drugs. An undercover investigation led to a civil settlement in a case against an Oceanside smoke shop, Aroma Avenue, for selling spice. That synthetic drug is illegal in California. A civil complaint was also filed against Cabana Smoke Shop in Imperial Beach. They face penalties up to more than $23,000. They were the subject of a federal sting a couple of years ago where spice sales were found in a number of locations. Today starts the clock for every California water district to curb its water use. Each district has until February to reach the conservation level handed down by the state. Our coverage on the latest efforts to survive the drought starts with KPBS reporter Claire Trageser, who tells us some local cities have a long way to go.
In April, San Diego cut its water use by 3.5% from the year before. That's not even close to the state-mandated 16% the city needs to cut by February. But while speaking in El Cajon's Water Conservation Garden, Mayor Kevin Faulkner sounded confident.
We must conserve water, and we must do it, all of us, by working together.
Faulkner says the biggest way to save is to cut back on watering outdoors.
Like many other water agencies, the City of San Diego offers several rebates and water conservation services to all of its customers. We've eliminated irrigation at off-leash dog parks, cut back water at city golf courses, and reduced the operation of fountains.
But the city's rebate money ran out last month, and cutbacks at golf courses haven't started yet. The city's Parks and Rec department head doesn't yet know how much water will be cut. Meanwhile, some fountains like the water park outside the County Administration Center remain on. While San Diego has had mandatory water restrictions since November, other cities in San Diego County are only starting to limit watering lawns now. The city of Poway enforced water rules on May 1st. Mayor Steve Voss says he understands some residents are reluctant to cut back because they feel it's the government's responsibility.
I get it. I really do. But today is the day to take the word but out of our vocabulary. Because while the bureaucrats in Sacramento and Washington, D.C. may have their heads in the sand, they also have their hands on the spigot. So we will stand shoulder to shoulder, ready to do whatever it takes to be good stewards of the water that we do get.
Voss, Faulkner, and other local mayors toured the water conservation garden at Cuyamaca College. Its 6 acres are filled with water-wise plants from across the world. Executive Director John Bolthouse says the garden is set up as an example to others.
How you as homeowners, as HOA managers, as commercial property owners can utilize a demonstration garden like the water conservation garden to show folks how you can save water. You know, drought-tolerant, water-wise, California native planting is not a compromise. It's an enhancement to your landscaping.
As the region heads into the warm summer months, the state will be watching to see if local cities' efforts to cut back are enough. Claire Tregesser, KPBS News.
We're taking a closer look at those radical water reductions as our drought coverage continues with KPBS North County Bureau Editor Allison St. John. She says it can be confusing to know exactly what the cuts mean for you.
Exactly how much water you're expected to conserve and how you're supposed to do it depends on where you live. There are 20 state-mandated water agencies in San Diego County, and each has a different water reduction target. If you call your city, you might find there's a drought hotline, like this one in Escondido.
For current water restriction information and to report water use violation, press 2. For information on rebates, press 3.
Some cities want residents to cut back outdoor watering to 2 days a week, but which 2 days varies by city. Some have time limits on how long you can water. It's 8 minutes in the Vallecito Water District. The County Water Authority has a tool on its website, whenindrought.org. If you enter your address, you get a link to the new rules in your area. Allison St. John, KPBS News.
Some people may think new construction would use more water, but a new report shows that's not exactly the case, and some development may decrease water use. Peggy Pico takes a look at the concept of infill development and why it may help the county save water.
Infill development is the building of condos, apartments, homes, or other living spaces on blighted or vacant lots in urban areas. A recent report by the advocacy group Circulate San Diego touts infill development as a water-efficient way to deal with housing during the drought. My guest, Colin Parent, co-authored the report. And Colin, what are some of the key findings in this report on how infill developments can actually impact water use?
Well, one of the biggest findings is pretty intuitive, and that's that infill development, like condos and apartments, tend to use less water than alternative developments just because they don't have as large of yards or outdoor spaces. And outdoor spaces and lawns can actually make up about 50 to 70% of a home's water usage.
Now, a counterintuitive idea is that, but if you're putting up a 15 or 15 unit complex where there's going to be a lot of people in it, where there used to be, you know, a barren lot, a parking lot, something like that with no people, that would actually increase water consumption. So how would that be, how is that water conservation addressed?
Yeah, well, so the alternative to that is not that those people aren't going to exist. It's that they're going to live somewhere else. And they're going to live somewhere farther away where they're more likely to have a larger yard and they're more likely to be using more water in a less efficient way.
So further away, and I understand that some of that is how far the water has to travel as well, right?
Yeah, that's right. So our researcher, Joe Cosgrove, who put together the bulk of the report for us, found something that I was unaware of, and that's really that pipes actually leak a lot of water. It's somewhere between 6 and 25%. And the longer those pipes are, the more likely that they are going to leak. And so when you're building projects farther and farther away from the center of cities, that actually means you're going to be wasting water, not just on yards, but also just on the conveyance of the water to get there.
Well, one of the reasons for these developments expanding out in sort of the fringe areas or going further and further away from downtown is cost. I saw a infill project on Bankers Hill where rent prices for the apartments were between $2,000 and nearly $8,000 a month. So how do infill developments meet affordable housing standards?
Well, so a lot of the affordable housing that is coming online is infill development, and they have to go through, if a developer is going to build affordable housing, subsidized affordable housing, they have to go through the same development process that a market rate development does. And they oftentimes get the same sort of pushback and concern about water usage that a market rate developer would. And so if we really want to embrace this concept of preserving water by including infill development, that actually helps out the developer who's building that affordable development.
To allow for more affordable homes. Yeah. What are some of the big concerns or complaints you're hearing about infill developments, if there are any?
Well, we do hear some complaints, and that's part of why we're putting this report out, is that we're hearing from developers who are trying to do new infill projects that sometimes the neighbors are saying, hey, you shouldn't build this thing. We don't have enough water in the region to build it. And we're trying to help inform that conversation so that the developer can communicate with the neighbors, and the neighbors can understand for themselves that there's actually a water benefit to this more compact infill development.
And the people that you say are coming, if there's not enough water, why are these people coming to San Diego?
Well, so some of them are coming to San Diego because who doesn't want to come to San Diego? But most of the growth in San Diego is actually just from natural reproduction. And we're not going to get people to stop reproducing just by not allowing new infill development. So the people are going to be, our population is going to grow one way or another. The question for us is, are we going to develop for them in a water efficient way or an inefficient way?
And what about single family homes? We're talking about these complexes with less yard. Do single family homes fit into the infill idea?
Sure. And so, so some of the single family homes are coming up in an infill context in an existing developed area. And most of those tend to be smaller and have smaller yards than the alternatives that are farther afield. And also a lot of the new development for single family and for home ownership tend to be like row homes and townhomes, and those also have, maybe they have yards, but they're much smaller.
How would you like to see this report used here in San Diego County?
Well, hopefully it educates people. Hopefully it lets people understand that there are better ways to protect water than by just saying no to development, and then also to help inform those conversations when a developer is trying to go into an existing place and trying to develop a new cool walkable project, so they can have that conversation with potentially skeptical neighbors.
All right. Well, we have the complete water infill report on our website, kpbs.org. Colin Parent, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our coverage on California's drought emergency continues online anytime. You can find Running Dry at kpbs.org/drought. Some San Diegans are on a hunger strike in support of a U.S. citizen in a Mexico City prison. She's been held on charges of kidnapping. KPBS Fronteras reporter Jean Guerrero explains.
Nestora Salgado moved back to Orinala, Guerrero after spending 20 years in the U.S. She launched a community police force, an increasingly common method of dealing with drug cartels in a region where many distrust the police. It's legal, but after she arrested 3 suspected drug traffickers in 2013, she was imprisoned on charges of kidnapping them. Salgado stopped eating on May 5th. Now, some San Diegans have joined a global hunger strike to bring attention to her case. Rosa Barajas is one of the strikers camping outside of the Mexican consulate on India Street.
A lot of people don't know, even Mexican people don't know who Nestora Salgado is and why is she in jail.
The San Diego strike began Friday, the same day Salgado was moved from a maximum security prison to a more comfortable women's prison in Mexico City, where she's allowed family visits.
It is working. Actually, yesterday, her husband, Jose Luis, called us to say thank you and to let...
Federal prosecutors dropped charges against Salgado last year, but state prosecutors are still fighting to keep her in prison. Guerrero's interim governor called for her release, saying she's being held for political reasons. Jean Guerrero, KPBS News.
The trial continues for a former San Diegan accused in the deadly shooting attack at a Colorado movie theater. The big question for the courtroom, what was the mental state of James Holmes? Prosecutors called many survivors to the witness stand. As Associated Press reporter Peter Banda explains, the experience of testifying has been a combination of catharsis, terror, and relief.
I wear Batman t-shirts, I have Batman bracelets, I have Batman floor mats in my car.
A love for all things Batman is why Christina Blasch joined co-workers for a midnight showing of a Batman movie in 2012, a movie that turned into a real-life horror story.
I took my hand down to feel, I felt, because I saw the blood come up in front of my face.
Blosh is one of 51 survivors who have testified so far in the trial of shooting suspect James Holmes. She wasn't sure how she would react when she saw Holmes in the courtroom.
You go through 3 years of healing and learning, how to walk again and how to swim, how to skate, how to do everything you learned from the age you were born all over again. And to look at him and he wouldn't look you in the eye, it was pretty uneventful.
The trial has triggered nightmares for Blosh.
Well, when you're watching other people testify and say what happened that night, it can put something back into place that you didn't realize had happened, because whether you were in shock, whether you were running for your life, whether you were trying to help the person next to you, it doesn't matter. It could put something back together for you, and it could affect you for the next month. It could affect you for the next year. You don't know, depending on what the piece was.
Blosh was shot through both legs during the shooting. Alex Sully Sullivan, one of her co-workers, was among the 12 who died.
Alex Sullivan. It's this full thing right here. I still have weight carrying with me, and part of that's because Sully died in the theater. And in my opinion, I feel like I didn't get to say goodbye. So there is a part of me that is kind of looking for that somehow.
Blosh and the other victims are also looking for justice. Holmes has pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity. His trial is expected to last until Labor Day. Peter Banda, Associated Press, North Glen, Colorado.
And illegal practice on the highway got a green light from some state lawmakers. The Assembly approved a bill to make lane splitting legal. It allows motorcyclists on state highways to ride in between lanes. Opponents say the practice is dangerous. Supporters say legalizing it is safer than outlawing it. A study of 6,000 California motorcycle accidents showed 1,000 involved lane splitting. If passed, California would be the first state to make it legal.
Well, I think what they're going to see is that the parameters are going to set the stage for a much safer lane splitting practice, because it's been unregulated. And so now that they have parameters and they understand how they can do it more safely, I think that everybody's going to benefit from this.
It now goes to the state Senate for review. Lawmakers in Washington, Oregon, Texas, Nevada, and Tennessee are also considering similar moves. A plan to expand Highway 94 near downtown San Diego is in its final stages, but the project is being met with resistance, as we hear from Peggy Pico.
The proposal includes adding one express lane in each direction, seen in red on this map, from the 805 to downtown. The lanes would be exclusively for carpools and rapid transit buses, but opponents say it will increase pollution and the city should focus on public transportation. Here with a closer look are my guests Monique Lopez with the Environmental Health Coalition and Gustavo Dellarda, Caltrans Corridor Director. And Gustavo, what are some of the key features for this project right now?
Thank you for having us. This project proposes to build one lane in each direction to connect the existing carpool lanes from the middle of 805 into downtown via a direct connector that will connect those two freeways. And it's about a 3-mile section of the freeway between 805 and downtown San Diego.
And there's some ideas, right? Either expanding this way with HOV lanes or also a portion of it maybe going double-decker?
Really the difference between the two alternatives is how long the connector is between the two freeways. In one of the alternatives, it's about 2 miles long, from where it starts at 805 to where it lands on 94. In the other alternative, it's much shorter. It's about 3/4 of a mile, but it touches right before the 1594 interchange, which has those left-handed ramps. Under that alternative, we have to reconfigure that interchange as well.
What are some of the main goals, Gustavo, of this expansion, and how much is this project going to cost?
The main goal of this project is to provide more options to commuters by allowing carpools and transit to use these lanes, but it also to provide some badly needed operational and safety benefits by improving the way that 94 runs. It was an old freeway that was built in the late 50s that is in badly need of some improvements.
I understand that the number of cars went from, when it was built in the 50s, from about 50,000 a day to now about 150,000 a day. Is that correct?
That is right. And in the 50s, obviously, the type of vehicles and the speed of the vehicles was not what it is today.
Yeah, and Monique, the Environmental Health Coalition is opposed to this expansion. So what are some of those main reasons as to why?
We see this as a $600 million opportunity to do something good when it comes to regional and local mobility. We're really concerned as to how the project is currently being proposed, because all the research shows is that when you widen freeways, it doesn't relieve congestion. Usually within a 4 to 5 year time period, congestion is back up to the same level that it was prior. We have a recent example to our neighbors in the north. $1.1 billion and counting was spent on the 405 freeway in the name of congestion relief. But now it's back up to the same levels. We're concerned because when you add another lane, you're actually adding capacity for more air pollution to go through that corridor as well. But additionally to that, the city has really good draft climate action plan goals to increase biking, walking, and taking public transit in San Diego. But as the plan stands, it begs the question, how are we going to achieve our climate action plan goals when you have freeway widening happening through the heart of the city that doesn't even allow for one single transit stop along that entire corridor for that community to access?
Well, let me have Gustavo address that, because these lanes are for HOV, right, and also for rapid transit. So how else, that's one way to address that. How else are you addressing pollution and, public transportation concerns?
So there is a trolley line that goes right parallel to 94 already. It's the orange line. And there is also a robust bus service on Market Street and Broadway, parallel already to 94. So there are some transit options there. This is part of the original plan to provide transit options from the people that are coming from Otay Mesa and South Bay, National City, and Chula Vista into downtown, because there are no options there. Right now in that corridor coming through the 805, there is no transit options there.
So, Monique, how would you like to see this transit money be spent instead?
We would like to see a transit option on the table that doesn't increase air pollution, that doesn't increase vehicle miles traveled, that doesn't increase greenhouse gas emissions. And we have come up with a couple of alternatives that are innovative and they're community supportive. And so it's not just me asking for this. We have over 500 petition signatures. We also have Dr. Shirley Weber, Lorena Gonzalez, David Alvarez, and Marty Emerald on the record in need and in support of having other alternatives on the table.
All right, and we're going to have to leave it there. We're out of time. Monique Lopez and Gustavo Dalliarda, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
I'm Judy Woodruff on the next NewsHour. A rare look inside the Islamic State with an author who wooed one of the militant leaders. That's Monday on the PBS NewsHour.
10 years after undergoing a heart-stopping procedure at UC San Diego, a man from Memphis, Tennessee returns to set a new personal record in something he never dreamed he'd be able to do thanks to his doctor.
Because at the time we were the only place really in the world doing this operation, and the only place certainly doing it successfully.
Standing beside his surgeon with his wife, daughters, sister, and mother along for moral support, John Perry says he was overweight and could barely walk 50 feet before the procedure to clear his lungs of scar-like tissue that robbed him of the ability to breathe normally.
I was not a healthy specimen. I'm surprised he didn't kick me to the curb just because I'd let myself fall apart.
Perry was diagnosed with pulmonary hypertension, a type of high blood pressure. His surgeon, Dr. Stuart Jameson, pioneered the innovative treatment at UC San Diego, where the patient's blood circulation is completely stopped and the brain ceases activity.
We've now done nearly 3,500 of these operations, which is way more than anywhere else in the world, of course.
From barely walking to running. On Sunday, Perry competed in San Diego's Rock and Roll Marathon, his 25th race since the operation. Today, he gave his medal to Dr.
And
James.
I got to say, this is the easiest marathon medal I've ever got. So thank you for that.
Not necessarily.
Perry has lost more than 100 pounds since the operation 10 years ago. He says he was excited to reunite with the doctor who helped save his life. Well, the crowd went wild for a 92-year-old cancer survivor who also rocked her way across the finish line. Harriet Thompson completed the Rock and Roll Marathon yesterday in 7 hours, 24 minutes, 36 seconds. The race marked a new record. Thompson is the oldest woman to finish a marathon. Well, June 1st, and it's feeling mild-like weather here in San Diego, but there is a slight chance for some rain later in the week. We should see a mix of sun and clouds by the afternoon along the coast. Temperatures there mostly in the upper 60s. As for the inland valleys, a little warmer there, with a slight chance of showers expected on Thursday. Back into the 70s and 60s for the mountain areas. Plenty of sun if you're headed that way. Another hot one in the desert. Back into the triple digits, then dropping into the 90s on Wednesday and Thursday. Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom on Midday Edition. Project 25, a housing first effort to help high-risk homeless people, is being celebrated as a success, but the overall number of homeless people in San Diego is on the rise. Join us at noon on KPBS Radio. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us. Have a great night.